We start tonight with new developments in the case of Andrew McGann, the man accused of killing two hikers at Devil's Den State Park in July, as his lawyers are now asking that all recordings of court proceedings be banned. This just a day before he is set to once again appear in court. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Brooke Buckner. In August, McGann pled not guilty to the deaths of Clinton and Kristen Brink, but prosecutors are still seeking the death penalty, which likely means the case will drag on for several more months and maybe even years. That hearing is tomorrow in Washington County. Joseph Duggar, meanwhile, was in a Florida court today after being transferred from Washington County Sunday. The 19 kids and counting star was arrested 2 weeks ago for allegedly sexually abusing a 9-year-old girl. He is being held on a $600,000 bond and, if convicted, could face life in prison. He will be back in court April 20th, but he and his wife have also been charged with 4 counts of false imprisonment and 4 counts of child endangerment here in Arkansas, with the court date for that set for April 29th. Let's bring in meteorologist Nathan Scott now as we are under a weather impact alert for this weekend. What do we need to expect? Is it going to finally rain?
It's going to rain.
Okay.
We are expecting rain, but there's going to be some bouts of heavy rain and also the potential we could see some spicy storms. And with it being Easter weekend, people are going to be out and about.
Yes.
We just want to give you a heads up. I know it's still several days away and things could change, but looking at the latest information, it looks like we will have to contend with a strong cold front that may produce a line of storms. So here's what you need to know. April 4th, Saturday, this is primarily going to be an event that happens during the daytime. That's the good news. We'll have a period of some heavy rain and also some embedded thunderstorms, which could pack a punch. And right now, it looks like that threat of severe weather is fairly low. So the best idea is stay alert, stay informed, and be prepared to change those plans, especially if they're outdoors. Temperatures out there right now, it is warm. We're into the low 80s here in Little Rock, 84 in Arkadelphia, 79 in Batesville. Planning out your evening, the temperatures will slide back down into the 70s and eventually into the upper 60s, but it's going to be a slow go. Temperatures only dropping down into the low to mid 60s to begin your Wednesday. We'll call it partly cloudy with muggy conditions, and then highs we're back into the mid 80s for Wednesday afternoon. Also another breezy day. We'll have the chance of a few showers and thunderstorms entering the forecast as early as Thursday. More on that in your weekend forecast coming up.
Thanks, Nathan. Today marks 3 years since an EF3 tornado touched down here in Little Rock, causing damage across the capital city, as well as Jacksonville, Cabot, North Little Rock, and Wynne. We were live on the air as the storm approached and came right through our tower cam. But one of the hardest hit areas here in Little Rock was the Kingwood neighborhood near Camac Village. I've done a few stories there since the tornado, and on this 3rd anniversary, I went back to see how far those neighbors have come. With the turn of a shovel, change continues in the Kingwood neighborhood.
Life is back.
In more ways than one, people have rebuilt and moved back in, and thanks to longtime neighbor Jerry Scherger and his church, the wildlife is back too.
Trinity Episcopal Cathedral started the reforestation, and so far we've been able to plant trees from Cantrell Road all the way through Camac Village. So we put in over 300 of these large trees, as you can see over here.
Scherger says this was a crucial step in the healing process. Before the tornado, trees shaded the street.
So the emotional healing takes place as the green appears. And as you can see, the birds are back.
Yeah, they're chirping.
You can hear them now. And when you were here the last time, it was desolation.
And with this growth comes meaningful tributes.
Both of those lovely, wonderful, strong women succumbed to cancer, so we decided, well, let's make a memorial. So what, you know, they were fine Southern ladies and sweet magnolias.
Their spirits live on, right next to some beauty left behind by the storm.
This was a piece of a giant tulip poplar that blew over and took out a large part of their house. So we just call it Spirit of the Wind because the tornado created it.
The State Board of Corrections has voted to accept a settlement over who controls state prisons, reversing 2 years of legal fighting. It proposed withdrawing 2 lawsuits that, at their heart, argued over who controls the prison system, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders or the independent board. The 4 members appointed by the governor voted to approve the settlements, but former board members Lee Watson and Benny Magnus filed objections, claiming it says they broke the law. In a major voting rights ruling, the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals has blocked Arkansas from enforcing its wet signature requirement for voter registration. The court says requiring a handwritten signature instead of a digital one is not relevant to determining voter eligibility and likely violates the Voting Rights Act. A statement from Secretary of State Cole Jester's office said they are deciding whether to take further action. But it's not the only big election news we're following. We're keeping a close eye on numbers coming in for today's primary runoffs, as you have a little more time to cast your vote before polls close tonight at 7:30. The big race is for the Republican nomination for Secretary of State between Brian Norris and State Senator Kim Hammer. Tonight, THV11's Maya Ellison gives us a closer look at first statewide runoff in a dozen years, as well as other local races.
The countdown begins for a few candidates to secure their spot in this year's general election. On the ballot, the Democratic race for Senate District 15. Voters will decide between State Representative Tara Shepard and Charity Smith Allen. The other race Arkansans watching closely includes the Republican Secretary of State runoff between Senator Kim Hammer and Brian Norris. Both candidates sharing their final thoughts ahead of poll closures Tuesday evening.
Representation and also election integrity and election security. Those 3 areas right there, what people need to know is I've got a reputation of being a hard worker. I've got a lot of trust of those that are in service now, and I just want to continue the opportunity to serve.
Lead, serve, elevate. In order to lead, you have to know how to serve. And if you serve well, you'll lead well, and everyone will elevate together.
Hammer received endorsements from Governor Sanders, Cole Jester, and U.S. Senator Tom Cotton. Norris explains his stance on voter trust.
I want to ensure that you, the people, begin to take ownership back over your body politic, and that you start feeling represented and not ruled.
Both candidates did not secure more than 50% of the vote in the Republican primary in early March, making this election crucial.
You want your candidate to make it to November, right? So if you're really wanting candidate A to win and be your representative, you need to go out and vote for them today.
Amanda Dickens with the Pulaski County Election Commission says this election is a little different, emphasizing some of the rules Arkansans may skip over. And while she's keeping tabs on voters, there's also an agenda they're following in-house.
This is the bag that has all the important stuff in that has to come back on election night. I have the thumb drive in there, all important signed forms, results tapes, things like that. And so we always separate that out and make sure we get this out so we can get the results.
Dickens tells me, yeah, this process is extensive to ensure every vote is accounted for. But she says this isn't the final step because everything you see today will only lead them to what's ahead in November.
We will begin our prepping phases as far as, supply needs, recruiting more poll workers, getting our training ready for the fall.
In Little Rock, Maya Ellison, THV 11 News.
Thanks, Maya. Polls are set to close at 7:30 this evening, so you still have some time. We will continue to follow tonight's results as they're available on THV11.com. Meanwhile, Governor Sanders has announced nearly $5 million in outdoor recreation grants for projects in 23 counties across the state. They fall into 3 categories and, according to the governor, will make Arkansas an even greater place to live. For nearly 40 years, Arkansas's Outdoor Recreation Grants program has invested more than $80 million in projects across the state. Here's a look at some of the bigger projects and some near us. The first 2 there are part of the Facilities for Underdeveloped Neighborhoods, or Fun Park grants. Those came in the same announcement as the Maumelle Pinnacles project, an effort to connect more than 24,000 acres from Little Rock to Maumelle. As NASA prepares to send people to the moon for the first time in 50 years, we're hearing from one Arkansan who's part of the historic mission.
And Saturday's not going to be a washout, but here is the timeline if we're going to see severe weather. It's going to be in the morning through the early afternoon, it looks like, for the western half of the state, and the eastern half of the state, most likely afternoon, maybe lingering through the early evening hours. I'll have a look at future radar and talk about how much rain we could see in the next 7 days coming up.